Hello everyone and welcome to another weekly recap, and whew, has it been a doozy. There's been a lot of news coming off the press in the last week, especially as of today. Some doomer moments come through as this actually is likely to be the last Overwatch League season ever. This doesn't mean Overwatch esports is going to completely disappear, but more on that in a bit. It's an article that came out today from The Verge. Activision Blizzard lays off esports staff as it faces potential dramatic changes. Thank you very much, money. Thank you for the 100 bits. Rip Al. For the Overwatch League. Sean Miller has an interesting quote in here that says, during the second quarter, we amended certain terms of our collaborative arrangements with teams entities participating in the Overwatch League. According to the amended terms, following the conclusion of the current Overwatch League season, the teams will vote on an updated operating agreement. If the teams do not vote to continue under an updated operating agreement, a termination fee of $6 million will be payable to each participating team entity. So what this means, that we're aware so far, is that at the end of this season, the teams will have a vote, and if enough of a supermajority, which is 2/3 of the teams, vote to essentially end the Overwatch League, all the teams will be paid out $6 million, which is, as far as we're aware, is around what they've paid for their franchising fees to be in the Overwatch League. The Overwatch League will dissolve. This isn't completely doomer for all Overwatch esports. There is an assumption that if the Overwatch League fails, something new will be built in 2024. So potentially something better. My personal take for this is interesting because Overwatch League, I think we can all say, has been a pretty resounding failure in the way that it functions. The franchising model is something that was cool and hyped in 2018, 2019, but it was propped up by just a lot of investment and money. So the years have gone on, we can all agree that it just hasn't been a global league like it was drawn out to be. So potentially the collapse of this franchising system could lead to something more grassroots, a better system that works for esports like a lot of other ones have done. For me, I've been talking about this. I don't know how much I've talked about this in my YouTube videos, but I personally believe the best thing that could happen to Overwatch esports is to go to a regionalized circuit type of style, very similar to what you see in like Rocket League and stuff like that, Valorant, etc., where you have regions that all represent and then they have their own sort of leagues, and then they come together for multiple international events in a year. So, for example, we would have like a North American, a LATAM league, a European league, a Chinese league, a Korean league, and like an Oceanic league, right? Very similar to how Contenders is run. Teams can qualify, they run through that circuit, and then the top performing teams would then qualify for the international events. This is used by a lot of other esports. It leads to these regional pride things that sort of everyone comes together at an international event. Obviously, Korea would be the best region, but then at least everyone would be represented and we would see a more international Overwatch esports than what we've been having right now, because so far we have a league that consists of like 60% Korean players that represent North American teams, and we only have 2 events in a year and barely any teams show up. So my dream is that Overwatch League would sort of outsource a lot of their events and the way it's run, and that would then allow for Overwatch esports to go back to the way it really should be done. What that looks like, I don't know. I'm not great at logistics. I don't exactly know how all of this would work, or if this is the direction that the Overwatch, or at least Activision Blizzard, is trying to go with the esport. Fingers crossed that it could potentially be something better, but something is for sure. We're going to have a dark winter. Unfortunately, we did have a lot of employees losing their jobs. The people that run the Overwatch League internally for Activision Blizzard, a lot of them have been let go, and it's going to be harder before it gets better. That's absolutely certain. So some tough times for a lot of people, a lot of uncertainty for players, talent, just like myself, teams, and all that type of thing. My optimism is that we can pick up the broken pieces at some point and put together something that would make Overwatch esports great again and not have us go through another season like we had this season, where the format is terrible, it doesn't feel like the game is being represented well, and we can go back to making some awesome things. We're a little bit doomer. We are absolutely a little bit doomer. A lot of people have been coming out of the woodwork to sort of be upset about what has happened. Absolutely every right to do so, but I just want everyone to remember the good times and all the great stuff that has happened throughout the Overwatch League and be somewhat optimistic for what this could mean for the future. On better news, for what is going on outside of the Overwatch League, the actual game, Forbes came out with an article. Blizzard games are coming to Steam, starting with Overwatch 2. That is it. Overwatch 2 will be coming to Steam, so you'll be able to install, download, and play the game of Overwatch 2 through Steam. It should add a lot of users to the game. A lot more people will have accessibility, people who don't like to use the Battle.net launcher. As far as I'm aware, if you launch it through Steam, it's going to go through Battle.net in its own sort of way, but this will still lead to just an influx of players and more people playing Overwatch 2 as a whole. This is going to be dropping on, what's the exact date? It's when Season 6 comes out. I don't know if they have the date here. I should have checked this before I did the video. August 10th is when Season 6 starts. August 10th is when it will be available on Steam and Season 6 starts. So that is going to be a big season. Make sure to check this one out. Hopefully, the new hero, all this new stuff, new game mode, so many new things coming in, hero mastery, etc., etc., etc. So many cool things coming in Season 6. Make sure to check it out on Steam. Make sure to check out Overwatch 2. The last bit of big news that came out here for Overwatch is the playoffs got announced. We are going to Toronto, Canada, which I'm particularly excited about because I lived in Canada, well, Toronto specifically, for about a year. So this is where the Toronto Defiant did their event last year, as far as I'm aware. A lot of people said it was great, and it's going to be a great event for that reason. There's a lot of details here on the website if you want to check it out, of like when the dates are, when the tickets are coming out. July 21st is when I believe pre-sale is. 28th is when general starts. So go check that out. It's going to be happening on September 28th to October 1st. There is an interesting discussion of the format. The format is a little strange. I don't really have a graphic for right now, and it's very convoluted from the graphics that I've seen. But essentially 5 teams from the West and 3 teams from the East are going to be coming together. That's all coming. You're going to be sorted out through the knockouts and the qualifiers that are happening right now. There is going to be 2 brackets/groups of double elimination play. It's essentially like a GSL style groups where every team essentially has 2 chances to make it out of groups. There's going to be 2 different groups. So 2 groups of 4. That's going to be a double elimination play, and 2 teams will qualify out of these groups. Those 2 teams from each group will come together for a 4-team single elimination bracket. So there'll be 2 semifinals and then 1 final at the very end. What this means is that there is not a double elimination, and because it's not an 8-team double elimination bracket, one thing that this does solve is that the team that makes it all the way through the upper bracket, historically they haven't had an advantage even though they haven't lost any matches. So if they win all the way through the upper bracket and then lose in the grand finals, then tough luck, you don't get a second opportunity, which has been a bit of back and forth. But in my opinion, this format that we have coming for this playoffs, it's fine. Like, it's confusing as shit, and it's a little different to what other people have seen, especially if you haven't paid attention to a lot of other esports. So it's a little strange, but it's not that bad. It really doesn't matter. I know people have been like, whoa, what happens if Atlanta loses in the semifinals? Then they lost in the semifinals. In my opinion, if they lose in the semifinals, then they didn't deserve to win at the end of the day anyway. So we'll probably see the best teams come out on top. Yes, they could have just done an 8-team double elim bracket and just, sort of bit the bullet, as we always have with the winners not having that advantage, but it'll be fine. I don't see where all the hate and complaint comes from, but it is what it is. Yeah, and this season format has definitely been very strange and quite poor as a whole in terms of just having high-end important matches, but it is what we got, and I'm excited to be in Canada. It should still be a great event. The pricing is pretty big as well. Top team is going to win $1 million, second gets 400,000, and that trickles all the way down. So Overwatch League perks are going to be there as well. All that regular season drops and all that type of stuff. It's going to be a fun event. It could be the last event for the Overwatch League as a whole. It's going to be the last finals. Hopefully, it's an absolute banger. So that's all the news cycle that have happened outside of the game and outside of the teams. Let's talk about the teams that have happened. So the changes that have, in terms of rosters that have happened recently, Seoul Dynasty, they have decided to drop Lee Soo-min, and guess who's back? Back again, Vindiam, coming off some pretty poor performances with the San Francisco Shock. He has now come home to Seoul Dynasty. Maybe he'll go back to his regular self. It felt like he was never able to live and play well under the pressure of the San Francisco Shock. just really struggled. Him and Finn. They have since been replaced. You know, we got the Western backline now coming from contenders with Renko primarily with the smiling assassin. But it's glad to see Vindime go back to a team. Hopefully he can perform at a high level and potentially make Seoul Dynasty better, because Seoul have not looked very good at all. Then we go to Florida Mayhem, who have pre-ordered a player for the 2024 Overwatch League season. Goomba come out and said this is sort of them planning for next season, you know, filling out their roster, recognizing that they might lose some of their players. Hasn't aged well since the news today, considering there's not going to be a 2024 season, likely. So Marker potentially just caught a bag for doing absolutely nothing. So all the power to you. Congratulations. I don't think we'll see this guy play. It's rumored he might come in for double flex support, but I got nothing for you. We're moving along. San Francisco Shock. I'll play a little bit of this video, but I'll talk about it as it goes on. Striker somehow is back with the San Francisco Shock. The crusty crack pipe has been cooking, and Striker's back with this team. I don't know how many times Striker can go from Boston to the San Francisco Shock, back to Boston. Is he going to retire before the season ends? We don't really know. But Striker is back. They have filled out the DPS position. Probe and Striker are playing alongside Proper. This seems to be a much needed improvement here for the Shock, because Proper can essentially just play Tracer, and then Striker and Probe are essentially just filling out the roles. They look improved. You put that with Renko and, oh my god, who's the other support's name that I'm just like blanking on right now? Holy shit. Help chat. Renko and Luke Mino. Of course, Luke Mino, coming from Vegas Eternal. He literally leaves the worst team, joins the San Francisco Shock, and wins his first match instantly. So Luke Mino is the ultimate dub. He's actually playing quite well on Brig as well. Saw some sussy stuff on Lucio, but we'll see if that becomes more of an issue further down the line. Yeah, he doubled his wins. Well, no, he never won before in the league, right? So, hey, all the power to him. They're playing well. They definitely look improved with some of these changes. As much as a lot of people were doubting these sort of Western player signings and if they were going to be better, they at least look a little bit better. Houston Outlaws also made a change. Gargoyle has been dropped. He's essentially said he's retiring from Overwatch League. We didn't really see him play much here for the Outlaws. They've primarily played Fearless. He came in a little bit to play some off tanks, but without getting much game time, it feels like he was maybe just didn't want to play anymore. Decides to retire, which, given the direction of the league, is not always a bad choice. Over to Atlanta Rain as well, they lost Wizard Young. Wizard Young was an assistant coach here for the Atlanta Rain. He was doing a lot. We don't really know how integral he was to their success, but obviously Atlanta's been killing it now. Hopefully this doesn't leave too much of a hole for this team. So goodbye to Wizard Young. He's retiring as well, I believe. That was the verbiage that ended up getting talked about. So a couple of retirements late in the season. I don't expect this one to affect the Atlanta Rain too much. So let's talk about the weekend games. Oh god, I'm going to have to work out how I'm going to talk about the East. Because somehow the Eastern region hasn't filled out the pick'ems. So I'm trying to remember. I think I remember everyone who won in these games. But let's start with the West. So we have Florida Mayhem taking on the Houston Outlaws. Pretty much everyone believed in the Houston Outlaws. Houston did not play well this weekend. Houston were heavily struggling, playing a lot of Pelican Echo. I think he played the most Echo out of any player in the league this weekend. And they got booty bopped by Florida Mayhem. Florida playing a lot of like Merit Ash and sort of playing some unconventional styles, threw Houston Outlaws off a little bit. Florida just the better team. I don't really have a lot of answers of why Houston's doing so poorly. They theoretically should be good at the way that they're playing, but they just aren't. They actually look like they got worse in this break. So no flexibility with Gargoyle and that type of stuff anyway. So see how that goes. Atlanta Rain booty bopped the London Spitfire as Atlanta looked to still be great in London. Honestly, potentially looking like the worst team in the West, which is a fall from grace of what they were last year. Playing this Winston style. Spark is playing almost exclusively like Cassidy and Hitscan. They just don't want to touch playing Sombra or Echo, and that's really hurting them because they just getting stomped by any team that knows how to play an effective dive. And with Valiant and the Vegas Eternal both looking better this weekend, those matches are coming up. I believe it's on the 30th or something like that, where you'll see London Spitfire play the Valiant or Vegas Eternal. So London have a lot to improve on and a lot to grow, because they're trying to play Reinhardt and play this brawl style, play their own style, but it just looks real bad right now. So back to the drawing board. Los Angeles Gladiators played against the San Francisco Shock. This series was closer than a 3-0. It was actually a draw on Hybrid in the second map, but the Gladiators, another team that have just looked worse after the break. They did sign Marvel. Marvel was supposed to be that Winston tank that was going to make the Gladiators better. But even though he had some good performance, more in this Valiant match, you can see a little bit of a disconnect, and he's getting punished a lot for some of the moves that he's making. And San Francisco Shock threw some curveballs at them with a wrecking ball by Junbin, and Shock just looking to be in a better spot, and they lost that 3-0. So Gladiators, another team, just like the Houston Outlaws, where it's why is this team not good? I don't really know why it's so bad. There's a lot of different pieces that are just not playing that well. They play the Valiant this week. London Spitfire played the Valiant this week. We'll have to prep that one in a second. New York Excelsior played against the Vegas Eternal. This was not a good opening match here for the Vegas Eternal and their new additions. We saw some good moments here from the Eternal, but we'll talk more about them in just a minute. New York Excelsior looking very strong, honestly. Much improved. They played a lot of different compositions based on the maps. It seems like their coaching is good. The players are playing well. The substitutions make sense. We even had Anian. She came in to play Circle Royale and is likely to be a staple on that map. She played well. They did their job. Took down the Eternal. So massive wins. Awesome to see Anian come in. Second female player to ever play in the league. Get that map win off the bat and help the Excelsior win 3-0 of the Eternal. Then we had the Los Angeles Gladiators versus the Los Angeles Valiant. Oh man, Battle for LA should be easy for the Gladiators, right? No. Absolutely not. The Valiant shutting this shit down as White Chio, aka Liar, clutches up on Lijiang Tower, and they managed to get the win over the Gladiators. Seeker also had a bonkers performance on the Sojourn on some of these maps. I think it's Esperanza, where he just went nuclear at some of those points. And yeah, Valiant get their first win of the season over a team of the caliber of the Gladiators. I will say, not to discredit the Valiant, but sort of give some copium here for the Gladiators fans. It was a weird map pool for the Gladiators. It was kind of unfortunate. They played a lot of rounds where the Valiant were able to play Ramatra, because Valiant look very poor in the Winston dive, and when they can't play Seeker on Sojourn, if they can play the hit scan and play the Ramatra, there can be some competition there. But in the dive, Gladiators are a much better team. And that was shown here in this series. There was some unique clutches for the Valiant that got them over the line from time to time, and they deserve that, and this isn't discrediting it. But if you're the Gladiators, it's not the end of the world. They're not the third to worst team in the league, in my opinion, right now. Glads lost Winston Dive Map 3. They lost it on Gibraltar, but that's a map where they just made a bunch of mistakes and got full held. They held the Valiant on second point or something like that, right? The Gladiators were in a good spot defensively. They just hard botched their offense, which is a classic thing on Nabani. I think they played Widowmaker, didn't find the value from Kai. Marvel had a couple of bad primals and then fed a couple of times. So they just played really bad for 4 minutes on that third map, and it ended up costing them. And from there, that's kind of a map that they needed to win. I do want to give props to the Valiant. They played a really interesting Junker Queen style on Esperanza that forced the Gladiators to mirror the Ramatra, and that enabled Seeker to go crazy. So yeah, big play by Valiant, looking good. Gladiators, Satiators, 19 billionth time we've had to do and go through this again. San Francisco Shock then played the Washington Justice, and this series was a lot closer than I think Shock fans would like it to be. Washington looking pretty good. Flora and Alfie were playing incredibly well there at the beginning of the series, but just wasn't enough to get over the San Francisco Shock. Probe clutch. There was a crazy clutch here from the Shock rookies at the very end. Junbin had like a 2k primal, primaled off the rallying brig on Busan, and Probe like balls of steel switches over to Widowmaker for the final overtime push and takes down 2. So some big clutch plays from the Shock, and that is the thing that you need to be excited about. Like, if these players can play with confidence, they will be a good team. Like, they can be a top 5 team, and I really like the way Renko and Lugmino are playing. They're playing better around each other. It'll be interesting to see how high this team can really go, but Washington Justice just wasn't enough to close out this series. But if Flora and Alpha Year playing that like top end style, it's difficult to face them. Toronto Defiant versus the Vancouver Titans. Toronto Defiant getting the win 3-2, and this was a barn burner. I honestly need to say I didn't get to watch all of this match, but I was listening to it and I've gone back and like watched bits and pieces of it. It wasn't particularly a pretty game, but they got it done. I think there was a lot of mistakes made by both teams in terms of ultimate usage and stuff like that, but I really like the addition of the new players. I like the way the Opener and Ultraviolet are playing together. It does look more coordinated, and Spectra's really fucking good. Like, really fucking good. So it'll be interesting to see how that like works for this team in the long run. Hydron can play the Tracer, Spectre can play the Echo, and all that type of stuff. So good additions here for the Defiant. And Vancouver Titans, I actually think Heesang's also playing really well. Sorry, let me get a drink real quick. Heesang obviously didn't perform very well in the San Francisco Shock, and now he's moved over to the Titans. Heesang's able to play like the Tracer, and Sugarfree's the one who's gone over to the Flex, like playing the Echo, playing some of these other things. And it's a good look for the Titans, but yeah, as I said, it was an ugly game. It was an absolute brawl, just like punches back and forth. But Vancouver they're just not enough. Atlanta Reign beat the Washington Justice 3-0. Atlanta's just better than everyone else, and they just kind of pooped on the Washington Justice. It is what it is. Atlanta's still, even in this meta, proven to be the best team. Lip, when he can play Sombra, is crazy. When they play the Echo, Lip plays Tracer. Put Stalker on the Echo. They're also really fucking good at that. I don't know what else to say. Washington Justice definitely had a hard one opening weekend. And yeah, now they lost Wizzy Young. I don't know. I don't think that's going to affect them that much. Boston Uprising take down the Houston Outlaws 3-1. Boston look very solid. Very, very solid right now. I really like the way that their dive is looking. They're playing the right things. They're pretty much exclusively playing Winston, Tracer, Sombra, which could hurt them given some of the map pool at certain times. But, you know, Winston, Tracer, Sombra is by no means a bad composition. And the Houston Outlaws, we thought Houston could go toe-to-toe with a team like Boston. Like, there was an idea that maybe Houston only lost to Florida because Florida were playing like unconventionally, but Boston just definitely the better team in the dive as Houston goes down to like 4th or 5th in the power rankings. We'll have to talk about that in just a bit. London Spitfire versus New York Excelsior was not close. New York Excelsior kind of pooping here on the London Spitfire. There was a lot of hits again attempted to be played there by Sparker, and New York Excelsior wasn't having any of it. They were just all over them. And I think New York Excelsior are going to rocket up my power rankings because I think they're playing very well. Florida Mayhem versus Vancouver Titans. Florida were by far a better team than the Titans. The only reason Titans got this map was a full first point Gibraltar hold. And Florida did a little bit of trolling. A little bit of trolling on that Gibraltar gave the window for the Vancouver Titans to full hold and close out that map. But yeah, no, this was definitely a Florida Mayhem victory. Chorong, yeah, the Kiriko Kitsune rush at second point when you're trying to attack first point. It's a little bit of trolling. Boston Uprising versus Vegas Eternal. Surprisingly close, this one. I casted this one with Mitch, and Esperanza was one team fight away, one EMP away from the Boston Uprising losing Esperanza and the Eternal having a potential run at the Uprising. Knife fucks. Let's just make this clear. Like, props to the Eternal players. Most of them played really well. They were doing their job. But Knife is pretty much the sole reason this series was so close. His Tracer was bonkers. Like, absolutely world class. Same level that I think of when I watch, Proper sometimes, right? Like, if he can keep playing this way, if he can play anywhere close to that, he's playing on 180 ping. If he can play like that consistently, this guy needs to get off the Eternal and onto a better team next year. Well, this guy should play for a whatever. Oh, God. Toronto Defiant versus the Los Angeles Valiant. Toronto Defiant looking like the better team. Valiant really showing that they are a good team when they can play this Ramattra style, but Toronto were just proving that maybe it was a little bit of a fluke against the Gladiators, or maybe Valiant had a good matchup against the Gladiators, but Defiant were not having any of the shenanigans that the Valiant pulled off against the Gladiators. So Toronto Defiant, easy win, 3-0. Moving over to APAC. APAC was very one-sided for the most part. We don't have some of these results, but I think I remember most of these. I watched a bunch of these games on Monday. So Guangzhou Charge versus O2 Blast. Guangzhou Charge won this 3-1. This one hasn't even gone through either. Guangzhou Charge won this one. Guangzhou's playing like a lot of Jimmy Hanzo. I was expecting during the midseason break, everyone sort of moved away from Hanzo. They're either playing Echo or Sombra. That seems to be the vibe that they're going for. But Jimmy Hanzo, it fucks, but not always. And we'll talk about that as we go on. O2 Blast has sort of been cannibalized in a big way. Same thing with like Dreamers, but Dreamers have held on a little bit better, I would say, than O2 Blast, considering the rebuilds, because all the best players from Dreamers and O2 Blast got promoted and went to these different teams like, Vegas Eternal and stuff like that. I would like to see Guangzhou Charge just playing more Jimmy Sombra. I understand it might not be a strength, but you can't just play Hanzo everywhere. You will get exploited in the same way that Spark is getting exploited on the London Spitfire. Soul Infernal 3-0s the Hangzhou Spark. Soul Infernal looking to be the best team in the East. Just Zest and MN3 kind of fucked. We knew they were good at this dive composition. Meta hasn't changed that much. Soul Infernal are going to be better. Hangzhou Spark kind of consistently becoming just the most inconsistent team in the league. Make it make sense, but Hangzhou Spark goes from looking really good to really bad depending on the day. I feel like if anyone can match their DPS, they kind of just fall over. But yeah, that's it, basically. I need to see Soul Infernal win internationally because that seems to be their kryptonite. Seoul Dynasty versus Shanghai Dragons. Fate comes in as the main tank here for the Shanghai Dragons. We're all optimistic that Shanghai Dragons would get better. Definitely better enough to beat the Seoul Dynasty. Seoul just don't look very good. Just no better way to say it. Seoul Dynasty kind of struggling. Maybe Vindime coming back will help. I don't know. We'll see. But Shanghai looked improved. I think there was a little bit more coordination. He's doing Viper. We know how talented these guys are in this meta. Boom. They win. But we'll talk about the next one in a second. Guangzhou Charge versus the Hangzhou Spark. Hangzhou Spark won 3-0, heavily exploiting that Jimmy Hanzo that we talked about. Spark just seemed to always beat the Charge. Dallas Fuel versus Pokerface Gaming. Dallas is a good team. It feels like they've really embraced and accepted that Winston meta is kind of just here to stay. And they showed that they're willing to play it. Sparkle Tracer, Edison Sombra. We even saw a little bit of Sparkle Echo. Harbin's just playing a lot of Winston, really sort of relying and just trusting the process in that way. So Dallas aren't trying to like cheese their way or like find their own meta anymore. Just sort of accepting that they need to play this. And they played well. But I think it's worth noting, and I'll jump forward to this one. They played Pokerface Gaming and O2 Blast, both contenders teams that aren't playing at an exceptional level. So Dallas feel looking better, but it doesn't feel like I've seen them be tested just yet. So I want to see how they will do against the OWL teams of like Infernal, Charge, and Spark, right? Right now, if I was going to put them somewhere, I'd probably put them like second or third in the East, which is a massive improvement from where they once were. Maybe I'd put them below Dreamers. It's hard to know. Seoul Dynasty beat the Panthera. Panthera is just a struggling contenders team, so Seoul Dynasty were able to get over them. I'm not exactly sure what the scoreline was for that. Dreamers took down the Shanghai Dragons. Dreamers have been looking to be able to weather the storm of like losing a couple of their players. They were able to, get some pieces. They look pretty strong, and Shanghai Dragons looked bad. Like, bad against the Dreamers. Like, we were optimistic after the Seoul Dynasty win, but maybe this spoke more to how bad the Dynasty were, because Fate was like feeding. He got like hard diffed on Reinhardt. His Winston didn't look very good. They were all over the place. Coordination wasn't there. Maybe just an issue with just like the short turnaround for like implementing Fate, but it was an easy win for Dreamers. Dreamers were like by far the better team in this series. Soul Infernal versus Pokerface Gaming. Soul Infernal won that, I believe 3-0. Soul Infernal the best team, and I believe Dreamers took down Pantera as well. So let's talk about let's bring up the power rankings then, because we need to get this one done, and then I'll do the pick'ems after that. So we're gonna go Atlanta Reign number 1, Houston Outlaws tumbling down the order. I'm gonna put a tier break between Atlanta Reign and the rest of these teams. Boston Uprising. Who do you think's better, Florida or Boston? It's an interesting question. Both beat the Outlaws. Boston kind of struggled against Eternal. And then Florida booty bopped Vancouver. I think Florida's better than Boston right now. I think Florida's better than Boston. I agree. They're close though. They're pretty close. I'm actually going to put a tier break here. I think Florida Mayhem are pretty close here, like neck and neck. And then I'm going to go like Outlaws, Shock, Gladiators, Justice, New York Excelsior. So I think Glads need to tumble down. Do you think that... So, I kind of want to keep... Who are the Outlaws? I kind of want to keep Outlaws at 4. And then Shock, Washington, New York Excelsior. Who did New York beat? See, I don't want to over-exaggerate New York's success because they beat two of the worst teams. They beat Vegas Eternal and London Spitfire. So I don't think I want to put New York above these guys. I'm going to put them above the Glads because I think they're better than the Glads. Toronto beat Valiant and Vancouver. So Toronto needs to go above Vancouver, but only just. Toronto also had an easy week. Yeah, I think I'm going to leave it like this. There is a world in which I do like this, but I don't think I want to. I don't think that's necessary. I think this is like a circle of mid that we kind of just need to see more of this. But I like the order of it. I think Outlaws, they had an 0-2 weekend, but that was to Florida and Boston. I think they would beat all these other teams. Shock look improved. No, I think Shock has to stay above Washington. They still beat Washington. And New York had an easy weekend, but I think they looked good. I think the eye test is going to put them above the Gladiators. And then Toronto and Vancouver, they're still a little scrappy, but I don't think they deserve a tier break right here. So I'm pretty happy. NYXL greater than Shock, greater than Justice. You can't put NYXL above Shock, Justice, and Glads when they played Vegas Eternal and London Spitfire, literally the bottom two. Glads had an easy game and didn't look good. Yeah, but I'm giving the Glads the benefit of the doubt because I think they deserve it because they've generally been better this year. I don't think that was fair to them. You know, if they suck again this weekend, oh, absolutely. They're going to tumble down the charts. But I think I'm happy with where this is now. I'm definitely going to put the Valiant because they have a win. Vegas and then London. I think London's last right now. The way that they're playing with the Cassidy, they absolutely deserve to be last. There is no justification of why you could put London any higher than last. If Knife plays like that, they're gonna do dumpster on the Spitfire. So I'm happy with the West and the way that looks. All right, let's go over to the East. I'm going to put the Dallas Fuel above the Guangzhou Charge. I'm going to put Shanghai and Seoul down here. And then we're going to put... Is there a tier break between Seoul Infernal and everyone else? I think there is. There's a chance that Dallas are better than Hangzhou, but until Dallas get tested, I don't think I'm going to do it. The only reason Guangzhou is below 4th, even if Guangzhou looked better against the Spark, just the fact that they show an unwillingness to play the meta, I think is going to really hurt them. They got away with playing Hanzo in the last stage because I think Hanzo made sense, but I don't think it makes as much sense anymore. With Sombra Echo being played, I don't like this. So until Charge proved to me that they're going to be a better team, Dallas had the easiest game. Yeah, but you need to get... They looked good. Like, I like the way that they're playing the game. They're not trolling. They didn't win the games playing, like, weird shit. Like, I genuinely think they look good. I agree. I might be overrating the Fuel, but I like the way Fuel are playing compared to the Charge. And then there's a tier break because I think Shanghai and Seoul just both look really poor right now. Like, that... And I think Dreamers goes below Charge right now. There's a... I'd potentially put Dreamers above Charge... But I'm a Charge simp. Like, I think I'd put Dreamers like here. I think this is where I'd put Dreamers right now. So Chengdu is Dreamers. Okay? That's what we're going to do. The Hunters are Dreamers. Okay? They're our new team that live in the Dreamer zone. How do we add a 10? I don't know how to add things. This is way above me. I'll ask Solomon. Maybe I can get Solomon to do me a solid. Charge will body Dreamers? I don't know. Maybe. But as I said, I just don't like the way the Charge are playing the game right now. So that's my power rankings. This is the power rankings for the first weekend, or after the first weekend of the summer stage. So let's go do our pick'ems for this upcoming week. Let's get through these pretty quick. Valiant versus Shock. I think it might come down to map pool. I'm going to give Valiant a map win, but I think Shock should beat the Valiant. I like the Valiant. I think they're a fun team to watch. They are way too dependent on Seeker just going sicko mode on Sojourn. I'm going to give Valiant a map because I think they might win like a brawl map at some point. Boston Uprising versus Toronto Divine. I think Boston's going to exploit Toronto pretty hard. I'll give Toronto a map. I think they can do something solid on like certain maps, like Spectra comes alive or their DPS like pops off or something like that. But Toronto look really scrappy with their ultimate usage, and I think Boston will punish that. Like Decay is just playing so well right now. Houston Outlaws versus New York Excelsior. Ooh, that's an interesting match. I'm going to go 3-2 for Houston. I think New York is going to be able to go toe-to-toe with the Outlaws. There's a world in which like Houston just like 3-0 dumpsters the Excelsior, and they're like, okay, last week was a it was just a one-off. There's no need to panic. But I think it's more likely that this is close and it doesn't sell me on how good Outlaws are. But this is also credit to Excelsior. I think Excelsior are a solid team. Boston Uprising. Oh, I hope I'm casting this game. Boston Uprising versus the Florida Mayhem. I think Florida wins. I'm worried about Boston's flexibility in this. Boston have really only shown that they want to play a Tracer Sombra, and Florida's biggest strength is their ability to play. They will understand how Boston are going to play and play something that I think will make Uprising uncomfortable. And I think if they force Boston to like move around, I think Mayhem's going to be better. So I'm going to go 3-1 Florida. But this could be a banger of a series. Boston, if Boston come to play, Florida could fall. London Spitfire. Oh, okay. 3-0. Until London shows me any signs of life, they're going to get 3-0'd. Atlanta Reign versus Houston Outlaws. I think this is going to be a 3-0. Yeah, I'm going to go 3-0. I think Atlanta's just better than everyone. Valiant versus the London Spitfire. Ooh. That's a Valiant from me, dog. Even because especially if London try and mirror hit scan versus Valiant, I think Seeker diff Sparker. Straight up. I'm gonna make it 3-2 just for memes. I really want Valiant I want this to be a map 5 banger. Ramatra rolls Ryan. Yeah, I think Valiant are in a good spot. Even though they need a match brawl, I'm not looking up the maps. Like they don't show maps here, right? Yeah, I wish they showed maps here, but I can't be bothered looking it up right now. So we'll see. Atlanta Reign, they're gonna 3-0 the Toronto Defiant. Then Florida Mayhem, I think they win 3-1. I'll give New York Excelsior a map. I'm giving a lot of excitement to this Excelsior team. I will say that. Excelsior, I'm giving a lot of love right now. They've had a pretty mid-season, but I liked what I saw from them this weekend. Even if it is, it was against weaker teams, maybe they'll get found out that they play better teams. But what's going on with the Outlaws? I just think I think the Outlaws are just struggling to understand exactly how they're supposed to play the meta. But I don't think I think people are exaggerating how bad Outlaws have played. They played Boston and Florida. Both teams look really solid right now. I just think they were outmatched in those series. And I think they'll bounce back, though. It's not trolling, no. All right, now we go over to the East. Guangzhou versus Seoul Infernal. I'm going to go 3-0 for Seoul Infernal. I think they're going to... Unless Guangzhou, massively improve. Dallas, I'm going to go 3... I'm going to give Shanghai a map against Dallas Fuel, but I think Dallas is definitely the better team. Dreamers, I'm going to go 3-0 over Poke. Yeah, I'll go 3-1 against Poker Face. This could be a 3-0. I should probably give a 3-0, but for some reason, I think Poker Face will get him out. Seoul Infernal versus O2 Blast, 3-0 here for Seoul Infernal. Guangzhou Charge versus Panthera. I think Guangzhou will get him, but I'm going to give Panthera a map. Hongzhou Spark versus Seoul Dynasty, 3. I'm going to say Hongzhou gives Seoul a map. That's such a Hongzhou thing to do. Shanghai versus Poker Face. I'm going to go 3-1 hit there for Shanghai Dragons over Poker Face. Dallas Fuel versus Dreamers. Ooh. I'm going to put your money where your mouth is. Dallas versus Dreamers. You're going Poker Face over Dragons? No, I think Dragons will get their shit together. I'm going to put my faith in Dallas. I think they're going to bounce back this stage. This is going to be close, and I think Dreamers are probably favorited by most people from this weekend, but I'm actually going to go for Dallas. And then if they let me down, Dallas fans are going to stop coming at me. Hongzhou Spark are going to 3-0 Panthera, and then O2 Blast Seoul Dynasty. I'm going to go 3-2 Seoul Dynasty. They got Vin9 back. Maybe this team will reach their former glory. Boom. Those are my pick'ems. And that is my weekly recap. It ended up being a pretty long one. Lots of stuff to talk about. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Yo, thank you for the $10.
Who do you think had the better or more impressive win between the Valiant and the Eternal?
Eternal didn't win. They had a good game against the Boston Uprising, but Valiant won. So it's going to have to go to Valiant. White Chio just sort of coming out clutch, going in big. Seeker going absolutely sicko mode for the Valiant. That was such a sick series over the Gladiators. It was a cool match there for the Eternal, and it was fun watching them go toe-to-toe. I think it was more impressive what they did against Boston, but there was a little bit of trolling there from Boston in some of those series that Eternal capitalized on well. So... But it has to. Thank you for the $10 though, DM Evan. And that is the end of my recap. Obviously, Doomium is in full force. I really appreciate everyone who's sticking around, still enjoying these videos. Overwatch esports will continue to exist in some capacity. What that looks like, we just don't know yet. But let's enjoy the last season of the Overwatch League while it is still here. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you guys think of my power rankings, my pick'ems, all that good stuff, or even just all the new stuff that we talked about. Love you all. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you want to get these notifications of when my videos drop each week. Love you all. Have a good night, and I'll see you guys next time.